Alright guys, welcome back to another show here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Today I have a special video for you. If you joined us last night on the stream, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Had a good time with my old squad from the quarantine days, as I like to call it. Overall though guys, I can't thank you enough. We hit 12,000 subscribers last night, which is just phenomenal. We're growing like a weed, as my mom would say. But you know, today guys, I have a special one for you, so make sure you stay tuned right after this. You know guys, one thing that we always talk about here is fishing techniques and how to catch more bass and why you should catch more bass and all those other cool things like that. Today though, I have a special one for you. Today I'm going to give you a comprehensive guide on how to pick the right used boat for yourself. All these other pros, all these other fishermen are like, man, you should go buy this boat, you buy this new boat, buy that new boat. Hey, we can't all afford new boats, but in this case, I'm going to help you figure out exactly how to find a used boat that works for you. One of the first things you need to do when looking at a used boat is set your expectations. And what I mean by that is you can't just go into it saying, you know, I want to buy the biggest, fanciest, baddest boat that I can find. That is completely false. Don't do that. Don't overextend your budget, because we all have a budget at the end of the day. Set your budget, set your expectation. If your budget's $25,000, what you're going to look for is a boat that fits in that $25,000 range. The bigger the boat you buy, the more expensive or older it's going to be. So in the case of we'll just say a 21-foot bass boat, and you want to buy a 21-foot bass boat for $25,000, you have two options, only two. You either buy a smaller, newer boat, or you buy a longer, older boat. So therefore, you have to really set that expectation on what you actually need. A lot of times we buy things out of necessity, and sometimes we buy things out of just pure greed, or you know, we just want something that everybody else has, and that's not the right way to buy things. The right way to buy things is to really figure out what you need. If you're a bass fisherman and you're fishing on the Great Lakes, you probably need a big boat. If you're fishing rivers all the time, you don't technically need a big boat. You can fish out of an aluminum boat. You can fish out of an 18-foot boat. There's a lot of options out there. So once you've set your expectations on exactly what you're looking for, that's when a lot of fun comes into play. You know, there's a bunch of boats out there. A bunch of aluminum boats, a bunch of fiberglass boats. Right now, I would say the boats are as good or better than any year that I've ever seen. I mean, you have all these different boat brands that are making really, really good boats. There's a ton of aluminum affordable options out there. You know, but what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through a few things that are on my boat and what I would look for if I was buying a used boat. Because that is a question I get all the time, guys. Like, it truly is. What do I need to look for when I'm buying a used boat? I'm going to take you up to the trolling motor first, because to me, a trolling motor makes a big difference when you're fishing. So let's go look at it, and I'll show you exactly what I look for when I'm looking at a used boat. One thing I'm always looking for in a used boat is the trolling motor. How new is the trolling motor? How often has it been used? Where has it been used? And really, what condition is it in? Are the bolts broken? Or is it loose? And one thing that you can do, first off, before we even go there, if you're buying a boat, you should test the boat. I'm just being honest, like, you should test it and make sure it works. Why would you want to buy a boat that doesn't work? Anyways, when you buy that boat, what I implore you, or when you go take that boat out for a test, I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to drop the trolling motor in the water. So when you drop that trolling motor in the water, I want you to feel how the trolling motor feels. Okay, so some trolling motors are loose, you can tighten them up and things like that, but you can really tell a trolling motor that's been beat down. If that thing is wobbling and just looks like somebody put it through the ringer, more than likely or not, you're going to have to replace that trolling motor in a couple of years. I'm not saying that's a hard job, and it's not really that expensive of a job, but at the end of the day, all those little things that you have to do to fix that boat, it's going to add up. So I look to see, are the bolts broken? Is the head loose? Have they taken care of it? You know, does it have a ton of damage on the bottom side of the trolling motor? Have they been running it in shallow water? Has it been in rough water? Ask those questions. Trolling motors, although easily replaceable, still cost a lot of money. So make sure that that investment is good. Okay, so we hit the trolling motor. Now let's go to the part that I get most questions about, and that's depth finders. Let's go to those, and I'm going to explain to you what you need and what you don't need when it comes to depth finders. You know, as a pro angler, one thing that I get a lot is, man, I need 4 depth finders to go bass fishing, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I'm not saying if you can afford it, get you 4 depth finders, put them on your boat. Most important thing that I look for is how old the depth finder is there still updates available for that said depth finder, and do they have one on the front and the back of the boat. So that's something, it's super basic, and it's something that we kind of overlook sometimes, but it really means a lot. So like, you don't want to go buy a boat that has 20-year-old depth finders on it. I mean, I guess you can if you want to replace them, because that's what you're going to do. You're going to see what all this other new technology is, like the live scope and side imaging and down imaging and every other imaging that there is. You're going to say, okay, I need to upgrade this. Well, there's you another cost. So let's say, for instance, you buy that boat and it has a 20-year-old troll motor and 20-year-old graphs. There's a lot of money you just threw on the table to have to update that boat that you could have just bought a newer boat that had those electronics on it. So make sure you take that into account, because I'm telling you guys, like, right there, just those 2 things, trolling motor and depth finders, could cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. So make sure you're smart about that. I'm not saying that the boat that you buy has to have the fanciest of electronics, but what I am saying is that make sure it has the right electronics for what you are looking for. And if it doesn't, you know, there's always this like deal breaker. Like I always like to say, is a deal breaker. You need to set your deal breaker, whether it's your graphs or your trolling motor or the motor that it has. Does it have power poles? Does it have all these accessories that you want? Figure out what your deal breaker is and stick to it. You know, if it has a bad trolling motor, but you have a spare trolling motor at the house that you can put on, perfect. Don't worry about that. That doesn't need to be the deal breaker. But if it has terrible graphs, your trolling motor's broke, power poles are broke, you got a problem. So that's 2 of the first 2 things that I look for. Third is another important aspect that sometimes we tend to overlook. So let's go take a look. One thing I recommend is crawling under the boat and looking at the bottom side of the boat to see if there's any damage. You know, is there a gash? Is there, you know, how much shallow water have they been in? You need to look at these things to make sure that the boat is a worthwhile investment. This is something that's extremely important, because you don't want all those fiberglass bills down the road. Another important thing to look for is batteries. How old are the batteries? Do you have, oh my God, that scared the fire out of me. One important thing that I like to look for is batteries. Does it have new batteries? How old are the batteries? Are they 2 years old? Do you have to replace them when you get them? Does the charger work? These are all questions that you should be asking the next time you buy your used boat or look at you buying your used boat. How old is the charger? How old are the batteries? All those things you have to ask. Trust me. When you start talking about depth finders, trolling motors, batteries, these are all additional costs that you're going to have when you go to buy that boat. It's something that we overlook, guys. I mean, it's small little costs that really add up over time. Are they good batteries? Are they lithium batteries? Are they AGMs? These are all things that we have to take into account. So my boat, I run AGMs. I run a Pro Guide battery. It's a very expensive battery. It's not a lithium, but it's a very, very good battery. They're only 10 months old, 11 months old. So they're getting good quality exactly for what they want. But at the end of the day, like, my boat's also more expensive because it has the big graphs, it has the big trolling motor, all these new things on it. But when you're looking at that used boat that you're wanting to buy, make sure you look at that, because that is a very important aspect of what you're buying. When we start setting expectations of what we want, we have to figure out, you have to make a list. One thing I implore you to do if you're buying a used boat is to make a list of things that you really, really want and things that you really need. And then have another little section of things like, if the opportunity presents itself, I want these things as well. That's what I would almost consider a power pole at this point. You know, power poles are phenomenal. I would not own a boat without power poles personally, because I like to fish shallow. I like to sight fish. I like to fish for spawning bass. And power poles are the only way to go. I repeat that. They are the only way to go whenever it comes to shallow water anchoring. So that is a deal breaker for me if a boat doesn't have power poles, personally. Now you have to determine if they are something, or if that's going to be something that's going to be a deal breaker for you. There's another few grand, you know, $3,500 to $4,000 just to add power poles to your boat. So let's break it down for a second. You have a trolling motor. We'll just say $1,500. You got graphs. They're $1,000 a piece to $1,500 a piece. So you add two of those, that's $3,000. That's $4,500 between the troll motor and graphs. Then you add another $4,000 on power pole. So you see where I'm going with that. So when you're looking at buying a used boat, once you set that priority, exactly what your expectation is, then you can determine, okay, am I going to have to replace all of these things? Then honestly, when I was a kid, one of the boats that I ran was an 18-foot Express. It was an aluminum boat, and it was a fantastic boat. Over the years, we never really repowered it. We never changed the motor. We didn't do any of that stuff. We didn't do anything other than add newer electronics and newer troll motors. So we were always just updating those aspects of the boat. And now my dad has an 18-foot tracker that he bought, and it has as much electronics on it as any boat you'll ever see. It has a 101-pound thrust trolling motor, two big 12-inch graphs on it. So I mean, it doesn't fit the bill for an 18-foot aluminum boat, but those are the kind of the cause and effect of what you can do. So you can buy a smaller boat and upgrade everything to make it just fantastic, or you can buy a bigger boat and have a little bit, you know, smaller graphs, or not as powerful of a trolling motor, or maybe no power poles, things like that. So it's kind of a give and a take. So you can't get the best of both worlds unless you're willing to spend the money to buy that particular boat. So one other thing I'm going to talk to you about is motor. Figuring out your motor and exactly what your expectation is on the motor. And that's probably one of, if not the most important aspect of buying a used boat, beyond just the fact that has the boat been through hell and back. Is it just scarred to death? Does it have all these cracks? And those are all deal breakers for everybody. I'm just gonna be first and foremost with you. If this boat had like a ton of cracks through the hull and all that, it's not a buyable boat. Don't buy it. I promise, it's not worth it. So let's talk about the motor, and you can understand exactly where I'm coming from on that right after this. When you start talking about the motor, you got to figure out, first thing, how many hours are on the boat. Is there 100 hours? Is there 200 hours? Is there 1,000 hours on that boat? And has maintenance been performed on that boat yearly, annually, every couple years, every couple months, whatever it may be? The older the motor is, the more likely, especially if it has hours on it, and it probably does, the more likely that motor is going to blow up, or you're going to break something on it, especially if you use it frequently. So how much work has been done on the motor? You know, has there been 2 power heads? Has there been 5 lower units? Ask those questions when you're buying that used boat, because I'm telling you guys, the last thing you want is a lemon motor. I've had lemon motors. I bought used boats. I bought quite a few used boats, actually. And that sucks. It sucks having to replace lower units and paying for all that stuff and just buying power heads. And I mean, it is terrible. I mean, I'll tell you right now, guys, everybody thinks we get everything for free as a professional angler. I still buy every one of my lower units. If I hit something, my lower unit goes out, typically it's my fault, I have to pay for that. So, you know, I don't want a lemon motor. I don't want something that's going to constantly go out on me. So make sure whatever motor you buy, whether it's a Mercury, a Yamaha, an Evinrude, which that scares me a bit with Evinrude, just for the fact that they're no longer in business and warranty issues, and that scares me. So I mean, that's just my opinion. I have nothing against Evinrude, but that just scares me a bit. I've had some buddies that have dealt with some issues there, and I'm just telling you, that's a scary deal. So check your motor quality, see what's out there. You know, the thing is there's a bunch of used boats out there. There's a bunch of places to find used boats. You know, I currently run a Bass Cat Era, probably one of the best bass boats I've ever had. And the thing is, I've been with Bass Cat for like 5 years now, and I've run an era for the last 4 years, and they couldn't pay me to switch boats at this point. It's my favorite hull that they make. It's a very, clean riding boat. And that, if you're going to go buy a boat from a pro, let's just say, for instance, you're going to go buy a boat from me or from Mike Iaconelli or any other pro out there, and you say, hey, like, what boat do you recommend in a Bass Cat? And we'll just say, for instance, and this isn't a knock on Iaconelli, we'll say Iaconelli says, well, the last 5 years I've owned 5 different boats, and I don't really know which one I like best. They're all good. That's great. But the thing is I want to find the guy that says, man, I've run an era for 5 years, and that is the only one I'm going to run, because that gives me that confidence, because they like it that much that they're willing to run the exact same boat year after year after year. And like I said, I want to preface this. Iaconelli did not say that, and I don't know what boat exactly he runs as a Bass Cat. I want to say maybe a Cougar. But I just like the eras, and I want to find that confidence seller that says, you know what, I have had this boat every year for the last 5 years, and this is the one I recommend. And that's the kind of boat that I want, and that's the kind of seller that I want, because they give me that confidence. One thing I look for is if there's new tires or wheels on the trailer. I mean, that's something that's extremely important, because there's just another cost that you're looking at. I mean, are the wheels a year old? Are the tires a year old, 2 years old, 5 years old? Are they dry rotted? Do they have any grip left on them? These are all things you have to know when you're buying that used boat. So make sure that you check that, So when you do figure out exactly what you're looking for, you can make sure that it fits exactly what you need. One other thing you got to look at is the jack plate. What kind of jack plate is it? Is it a hydraulic jack plate? Is it one that just stays in place? And also the transom. The transom is something you have to look at on a used boat. Is the transom damaged? Is it made of wood? What is the condition of the transom? You can get in the back side of the boat, look at it, and make sure it is in good shape and exactly what you need. This is something that's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of effort when you're looking at a used boat. If the boat's over like 20 or 30 years old, more than likely it's going to have a weaker transom, especially if the boat has been used a lot. So that's something to take into consideration when you're looking at that used boat, to make sure it fits everything that you need. All right, guys, that's a wrap for a comprehensive guide for finding your perfect used bass boat. First and foremost, guys, I want to thank you all for watching this video first. Secondly, I want to tell you, thank you so much for helping me hit 12,000. That means so much to me. Like, I'm so excited about that. Like, y'all really don't understand. Like, I remember when we started this YouTube channel and how much work we put into it, and I've seen it over the year, and it's just been so fantastic. So thank you all so much, guys. Like, so cool. Like, so freaking cool. If you get a chance, hit that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Really would greatly appreciate that. But overall, guys, I hope you really like this video. I hope this helps you find the used boat that you are looking for. I know I had fun doing it. Didn't enjoy crawling under that boat, but that is something that's necessary when you're buying that used boat.